Biome, a group of biotic populations living in an area with a particular climatic condition. Ecosystem, a community of organisms and their interactions with their environment.
Streams and rivers, bodies of water moving in one direction. They can be found everywhere. They start at headwaters such as springs or lakes and travel to their mouths through water channels. Their characteristics change as they flow from source to mouth. The Nile River is in northeastern Africa. It is the world's longest river at 4,135 miles. It has two sources, Lake Victoria in Uganda, the White Nile, and Lake Tana in Ethiopia. The north section flows north almost entirely through Egypt. It ends in a large delta emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. The density-dependent limiting factor is one that depends on population size. An example is predation. The Nile perch is a fierce predator that has had a devastating impact in its initial and introduced habitats. Its ability to prey on different sized fish enables it to dominate many habitats and have a catastrophic effect on the many species it encounters as it moves in search of food. Another example is parasitism. The Nile perch also carries numerous parasites in its gills in different areas of its body, which can lead to the spread of disease among other species, resulting in the loss of biodiversity. Density-independent limiting factors are those that affect all populations in similar ways regardless of the population size. One example is human activity and seasonal cycles. Since annual floods from the Nile River no longer occur, the sediments that were carried all throughout the region are trapped. This lack of natural fertilizer has resulted in an increase in erosion of the river and an increase in the use of chemical fertilizers. These fertilizers cause pollution of the surrounding environment due to runoff. The chemical elements in the fertilizers cause an increase in algae blooms. Algae blooms and the increasing erosion present a problem to fish because they contribute to an increase of particles in the water, which can clog the fish's gills and suffocate them. Another example is Iceland's Loki volcano, which is a natural disaster. The volcano event, in which the volcano experienced 10 eruptions from 1783 to 1784, led to unusual temperature and precipitation patterns and caused a significant reduction in the amount of rain that fell over the Nile River and led to record low river levels. The annual floods from the Nile supplied the region with sustaining silts and sediments. Since the flood waters would stagnate on the land, the increased breeding ground for mosquito populations caused a spread in malaria.
Abiotic factors, non-living conditions which can influence an environment where living organisms live, such as temperature, light intensity, pH, and salinity.
The temperature of the Nile averages between 105 to 117 degrees Fahrenheit. In the rainy seasons, the temperature ranges from 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which limits the range of organisms to ones that can survive in higher temperatures. The Nile gets less rainfall than most places, which causes animals from miles away to travel to the Nile for water. Although the entire river does not get a lot of rainfall, the southern regions of the river get more rain, which causes their water levels to be higher. Higher water levels means higher rapid speeds, which makes water cleaner. The average depth of the Nile is 8 to 11 meters and the maximum pH is 8.5. When the Nile floods, silt is deposited 50 to 75 feet deep in the valley on the banks, and much of the delta is dominated by alluvial sediments like sand, silt, and clay. At the coast, there are saline lagoons and salt flaps trapped behind coastal sandbars. Now that there is river regulation, there is no longer annual sediment influx, and the plain is instead cut apart by a network of irrigation channels.
Biotic factors, living elements that affect another organism. The baby hippopotamus is often prey to the Nile crocodile. This can be good and bad for different reasons. It can be good in the sense that hippos can often have a significant impact on the land across which they walk, both by keeping the land clear of vegetation and depressing the ground. Over prolonged periods, hippos can even divert the paths of swamps and channels. Crocodiles preying on hippos can be bad in the sense that hippo excrement has high amounts of organic matter that many species living within the Nile River feed on.
The Nile perch is a massive environmental nightmare. It's a giant fish reaching a length of up to 6 feet and a weight of more than 500 pounds. Anything that big eats a lot, and it has caused catastrophic declines among native fish populations.
Our biomass pyramid shows the approximate masses of the animals and plants living in the Nile River. At the bottom, we have our producers, which take up 1 million kilograms, and they take up the most space. Then the energy spreads from the producers to the primary consumers. The primary consumers take up 100,000 kilograms. And then the energy passes to a smaller level, which is known as the secondary consumers, which take up 10,000 kilograms. The energy then transfers to an even smaller
Mass. It's 100 kilograms, and this is the tertiary level. They're the highest level in the biomass period, but have the least amount of mass.
Our energy pyramid, our tertiary consumers include the Nile crocodile and the African rock python. A tertiary consumer is an organism at the topmost level in a food chain that feeds on other carnivores. In other words, it's a carnivore that feeds only on secondary consumers. Our secondary consumers include the Nile softshell turtle and the Nile perch. The secondary consumer feeds on herbivores. Our primary consumers include snails, aquatic insects, crustaceans, crayfish, and mollusks. Primary consumers feed on autotrophs, or producers. Our producers include the papyrus, reed mace ambach, the tur, water lettuce, soft grasses, and reed plants. In our food web, we can see how all of our biotic factors living in our ecosystem interact with one another and how the energy passes directly from the producers all the way up to the tertiary consumers. The Nile crocodile feeds upon many different species, including birds like the stork and baby hippopotami, and the Nile softshell turtle and the Nile perch. And the Nile monitor, also a tertiary consumer, feeds on mussels and different species of frog, like the white-lipped frog. And the stork feeds on different bug species like the earthworm, and the hippopotami feed on soft grasses like reed plants. The Nile softshell turtle feeds on crustaceans and several different frog species. And the Nile perch feeds on aquatic insects and mollusks and zooplankton and other species of crustaceans, as well as several different species of fish.
Major threats to the basin development are agricultural and grazing land degradation, declining water quality, loss of wetlands and forests, overexploitation of natural resources, and also pollution from urban, industrial, and agricultural sources is increasing. The driving forces behind the threats to the Nile Basin's environmental resources are complex. They're attributed to rapid human population growth and persistent poverty. What will happen in the future is that eventually the Nile will not be as useful as it once was. Uh, right now, it's used as a source of water and fertile soil and helps crops grow and makes grazing lands. But if it continues to degrade like it is because of human impact and pollution, then it will no longer be usable for all this. If the Nile River experienced a natural disaster and had to undergo secondary succession to rebuild their environment, it would be easier if there was already an existing bank for plants in the soil. Also, if the structure of the soil had already been modified by other organisms to make it suitable for growth and colonization, and if root systems were undisturbed, then plants could grow.